Welcome to More Than No Podcast. We are back. We're pumping these out this month. It's been my commitment to get back on track with these podcasts. I'm really excited for today's special guest. It's my brother-in-law, Bryce Thompson. So appreciate you being here, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on. It's I can't believe that this is the first one that we're doing together.
I know, it's great. Yeah, we've been living together now for a little over 9 months. You guys will actually be moving out of here.
Yeah, in a couple weeks here.
A few weeks. So that'll be cool to see the next journey and chapter of your guys' life, as well as for us, for me as well. And I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about that today during today's podcast. But I just wanted to say before we get into today's podcast, since I'm going to be busting things out, we're going to be having a lot of really cool special guests week after week on this show. So if you're somebody who wants to join the More Than No podcast, if you are in the Phoenix Valley, please reach out to me and let us know. If you're somebody who's just watching this and enjoys watching the show, please like, share, subscribe, and comment below. It's absolutely free to do so. Your support is 100% free, and all it takes is just the click of a button to keep this show on the road. So with that being said, I am wearing my hat backwards, but I'm going to be doing 2 podcasts in a row. Last podcast with Blake Redmond, I was Sammy Listo certified, and I am still Sammy Listo certified, so I just have it backwards. So be sure to check out SammyListo.com for all of his new music that's coming out, and I'm wearing a Sammy Listo cutoff is what we'd like to say in honor of him as well today. So Montana Mountain Man cutoff is also something that Matt Quigley likes to say, and he's a sponsor of the show too, Trials and Tribulation Clothing. So be sure to check him out. He has a few different brands as well. So I'm always looking forward to supporting small brands, and this show is not something that I'm not getting paid big bucks through these big brands to support their products. So I want to support my friends and family who are doing great things. And with that being said, I have Bryce here, who is my brother-in-law, and we just celebrated the grand opening of Sunshine Sparklefaced on Saturday up in Cave Creek. So I'd like to get into a little bit of the journey up to this point, as you've owned a few different businesses together with my sister, and maybe have to backtrack a little bit to how you guys met, and then from the progression of where you guys met, if you could break it down like super quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So we met back in 2016. Actually, all of us were getting ready to go out to the gorge to Paradiso. All of us had to cancel for one reason or another. So you're the matchmaker.
They call me Cupid. That's for sure.
Got me in contact with Jessie because we live in small town Montana and she was out in Portland. So it was a little bit easier to sell my ticket out there. And then the first Snapchat that she ever sent me was her with this rubber chicken. She had like Middle Eastern hippie music going on in the background, and she was just dancing this little rubber chicken around. And I was the only one that responded out of like all of her Snapchat friends. And that it was like from that first night, we're like, okay, we're each other's weirdos. So moved out to. I was already on my way out to Portland for culinary school, and moved out there, and at that point we had been dating long distance for a couple of months. Moved in together really quickly. That the next fall we were engaged, and the next summer we were married.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, yeah, and in that time we've had. So you had mentioned Sunshine Sparklefaced, which is actually our second business together. So the first one was Caprenzo, our Italian food truck with Montana roots. We had that for a couple of years, and that was awesome. It was really fast paced, and we learned a lot from it. But there came a time when it was time to let it go. So we sold that, and then now with our adventure down here, Jessie has been selling. Jessie, your mom and your grandma have been selling their art out of our house for a couple years now, and going under the name Sunshine Sparklefaced. And so April came of this year, and Jessie was like, you know what, it's time to get into a store. So we very quickly found a space up in Cave Creek that we wanted to. Which was the area that we wanted to be in. It reminded us a lot of home in Montana, small town feel, lots of good people, smell of horse crap around the corner. And so got into that, signed our lease there in April, and was opened our doors July 1st, and it's been an awesome ride for the last couple of months.
That's outstanding. We'll dive a little bit deeper into the Sunshine Sparklefaced and your vision that there, and obviously I know a lot of that's with my sister, so I'd definitely love to have Jessie on the show, and her and I can talk about that. And I know that you guys are a team, and you're doing real estate as well. But let's just backtrack just a little bit to about a year ago. And a year ago, as you guys were living in Portland, Oregon, you owned a home, and so during that time, you decided to make the move to Arizona. And so, talk about the transition of wanting to make the move about a year ago, and then finding your way down here into the desert, and what that's meant to you, and really the reasoning behind it all.
Yeah, so over the last couple, even more so than a year ago, and we had a plan put in place when things started to change in Oregon, as far as I guess when COVID hit. We had a plan put in place that was like, okay, if this happens, we're going to adjust this way. If this happens, we're going to adjust this way. And over the course of about 18 months, everything that we had in our plan to adjust a certain way happened. And so it was like we had this plan put in place, and it was just like unfolding in front of us, even though it was just a plan in case these things happened. And so with all of those events actually unfolding, we got to a place where we're like, okay, you know what? I think that it's time for a change. We would like to be somewhere else. And so Arizona was number one on our list. You guys have a lot of family down here. You were coming back down here, and it's also a quick hop, skip, and a jump from all of our family that's in Montana. And so with the decision to come down here, I mean, we owned our home in Oregon and decided to put that on the market, and that was our first time selling a house. So it was actually, with me being in real estate, it was an excellent opportunity for me to like actually go through that process. And so it allowed me to have another sense of like empathy and understanding and knowledge in the industry that I was actually participating in. It allowed us to get ourselves completely out of debt with some student loans and whatnot. So we were able to completely pay that off, and then come down here and start the next chapter.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, a lot of transition that had to happen in the last year or two, and it's all of it leads to growth, and ultimately I feel that the transition that you made was in the best decision for you guys in your future. And obviously there's some exciting news that's happening, and the things that are going on. You're going to be expecting your firstborn child. So yeah. I'll be having my first nephew, Larkin, sometime this spring. So yeah. Stepping into everything that you're doing right now, and then the new position and role that you will be stepping in here in the future. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about that, about becoming a father here in the spring?
I am so excited. It was something that, both personally, Jesse and I on our own for a long time were no's on having children. And then when we came together as a couple and being married, even for the first like half of our marriage, we didn't think that we wanted children. And then over the course of the last probably 18 months, 2 years, we had started, you know what, okay, maybe sometime in the future, sometime in the future, we could see ourselves having children. And then over the course of a couple of months, it really solidified into okay, you know what, we would be awesome parents. And it's also like there were some scary things going on in the world, and you get into that mindset where you're like, you know what, why would I want to bring a child into this world? And then you have that realization where it's like, you know what, people like us, the good people that have a good head on their shoulders, can teach a child the how to be kind and empathetic and how to see the magic in the world and bring all of these positive things to the world. That's the kind of child that needs to be raised. And so it finally got to a time this last spring. Actually, my 32nd birthday was May 14th. And it was crazy because we were having a pool party. We were floating around in the pool, and we looked at each other, and this was the first time that we actually verbalized, like, you know what, we're ready to have kids. And 3 days later, we had the positive pregnancy.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It happens quickly. I mean, obviously, the situation in my life has happened really quickly in the last 9 months, and I'm incredibly grateful to be in that position as well, and to see you and Jesse come full circle in your just your understanding as well as your stance on children and consciousness and what that means to really step into that next level of responsibility as humans, and what our true meaning and purpose is, and bringing in new life, new seeds of life into this world. I believe is such a beautiful thing, and ultimately, like you did say, is that the world does require more people, more conscious people, bringing in more conscious babies.
Yeah.
And it's because obviously you can get lost in the sauce, you can get lost in the mix of the things that are going on. I mean, you could walk outside your door and be in conflict any day of the week. You can turn on the TV and be in conflict any day of the week. And ultimately, it's troubling times right now. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we do have the responsibility to be the change as much as we can within our own autonomous lives.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to be Paul Revere and hop on a high horse and wave a flag and take down the establishment. But ultimately, us being the rebels of building a family, being in monogamous, committed relationships, getting ourselves out of debt, being successful entrepreneurs. I mean, that within itself is a threat to the establishment. So it's really cool to see you and my sister being able to step into that role and responsibility as a couple, and as well as finding out on your own, you know, is what you really truly want in life. And so you're having a baby boy.
Yep, correct.
So you guys did find out.
Yeah.
So what do you, I know it's hard to dial it down, but I'll start with this first. What are you most nervous about having a son, or just a child in general?
Being able to feel like I have the capability of teaching him to be the type of man that I know is required in this world, and giving him the skill set to have a successful life. And that skill set is emotionally, physically, mentally, the way that he navigates relationships, how can he take care of a household, how can he be a good friend, how can he be a good husband down the road, how can he be a good human to himself and have self-understanding and be able to navigate those emotions. And you can get lost in the sauce thinking of all these deep I guess existential thoughts when it comes to having a child, and just like understanding that I just have to do my best of what I have at the time, because I'm going to continue to grow as a human being as well.
Absolutely. And
so I may not have, like, sometimes you get that end goal in mind as to, okay, what's he going to be like when he's a man? But it's like, okay, how am I transforming as a man now? Because the end goal that I already have in place for him is exactly where I'm at right now. It's like, okay, we're now bringing a child into this world, and how can I continue to grow and nurture myself, and then have that be a natural progression into nurturing him.
The best way to teach is to lead.
Yep.
And that's really ultimately what I've began to really understand, is the best way to teach is to just lead, to be those things, to find the best within yourself and your day to day, and what has you operate at your best. And ultimately, since children are so young and there's like sponges and unprogrammed computers, essentially, I mean, the programming that we put them through is ultimately going to be on us. Mm-hmm. And we decide how they are programmed, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. So you're not going to be free from situations that you, looking back and with hindsight, would change. But ultimately, being our best one day at a time is going to lead them and teach them and shape them, cultivate them into the men and women that we know that they're capable of. And the greatest part of it all is I know that our children are going to be so much more conscious than us, as well as grow up in such a different household and a different environment than we are. And that in and of itself, that's what anchors me in faith. When I'm anchored in faith is a state of knowing that these children aren't going to have some of the same situations that I had. It's going to be a little bit different, but that's okay, because then they won't have some of these challenges, but challenges are going to arise. They're going to have challenges. I mean, this is what creates people that have resilience, mental fortitude. They can begin to better learn about themselves. If it was easy, I don't seek my children to have an easy life. I mean, I seek my children to have a life of understanding, a life of love, to feel loved, to be worthy and enough, but also one of compassion and understanding, objectivity, and ultimately have them go and face their own challenges. And so for me, as stepping into the role as a father, it's me saying, like, I can't save them from everything, because that's something like, man, I don't want them to go through what I did. But then I look at, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, is me having children in the sport of wrestling, for instance. And I've always said I'm not against it. I just don't know if I want to put them through it. And then ultimately people ask me, is like, well, how would you arrive to where you're at today without going through something like that? And that really has rung true, because man, how true is that? Like, without going through some of the trials and tribulations of our lives, we want to be the men that we are today. So instead of coddling and putting and not allowing growth to happen, we have to allow some autonomy and allow them to have their freedoms and allow them to have the chances and opportunities to make mistakes. And to be honest with you, that's it's what I'm most nervous of, because I'm like, I want to protect them at all costs.
Yeah.
And in reality, that's not the truth of life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's because it's like, man, I want them to grow, learn, and expand, but they have to fail, and they have to have challenges and bouts of adversity. So I'm really looking forward to that, and being an uncle. Uncle Josh would be cool, and being a father myself, and you're an uncle to our baby boy or baby girl, so that'd be exciting as well. Yeah. And obviously crazy times right now that your wife, my sister, is pregnant and 4 weeks ahead of my fiance, who will be my future wife. So maybe share a little bit about that, man.
That's such a wild experience that we're stepping into. Is like, but all of us go from like not having and or wanting children for a part in time to now having the possibility to where if Jesse goes a little bit late and Jordan goes a little bit early, our kids could be like almost exactly the same age,
like the same week, the same day.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's wild, and it's so cool though at the same time, because I have a really small family. There's only a couple of cousins. Like, I have one brother and then just a couple of cousins, and so I have always been envious of people with large families, with large crews, and then also like cousins that are really tight knit, because my cousins are all over the place. We're close enough for like what it is, but just distance has kept us from being like what our kids are going to have the opportunity to have. And just the ability for them to have that partner, that cousin from day one.
It's so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be like brother and or sister.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it is.
And what a blessing that will be, because Jordan and I are waiting. So I always say, Blue 42. I'll be hiking it out with the midwife. Yeah. And so we'll see if it actually goes to plan like that. Yeah. But we'll Jordan and I will know on the day that the baby's born. Yeah. And so if Larkin is going to be having a boy cousin or a girl cousin, but regardless, it's cool to see that being built. And likewise on my end, same situation truly. I have one sister, and we never really had a big family, and all of our family was spread out, whether it be in Minnesota and or in the East Coast somewhere. And yeah, we were just essentially brother and sister, and had no cousins, just, everybody was on the East Coast. And so it's cool to be able to be in that position, to have our children to grow up together, and us to continually develop our relationship as families, and to And to be in that situation where we can make the change and we can break the cycle and have tight knit family get-togethers and gatherings and sorts that aren't ridden with a lot of chaos or drama or anything else
Yeah.
that becomes involved in family gatherings
Yeah.
and in families.
I know. We were talking the other day, and we were like, man, imagine, because we were talking about the next generation and being able to, like, how conscious our kids are going to be.
Right.
And we were like, man, imagine 30 years from now when they've already had 30 years of this conscious living. And I mean, we've been on it for a handful of years, but to like really stepping in and diving into our process and diving into our healing and just imagine what it's going to, like, how far ahead of us at this point they have the opportunity to be.
Yeah, it's truly a beautiful thing, and for me, I mean, just being in the position, I know that you guys are in a different situation than we are. So, obviously, I know my sister would have loved to go forth with a natural at home birth, and obviously there's some medical stipulations amongst Jessie, so she's just taking it day by day and the best that she can, And we're in a position for now to be working through a midwife, and so it's really interesting situation to have the opportunity to deliver a baby at our home, child, and have that chance to really get incredibly go back to being primal and going to our primal roots. So that's allowing me to step up and just seeing the difference of just birth approaches, not because it's our parents' fault of what we've gone through, but I even understand that our approach as well as your approach, regardless of where the baby was going to be born in your guys' situation due to your circumstance, is a lot of the situations after childbirth are going to be quote unquote, I don't like to use this word because it just shows like how against the grain it is, but ultimately it's unorthodox in our approach and against the societal norms. So preparing for that as a father, what do you foresee in yourself that's going to be really required heading into these next years and months due to your unorthodox approach to raising a child?
First and foremost, mental fortitude when it comes to unsolicited and outside advice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Everybody's got an asshole.
Yeah.
And they all stink.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
it's like opinions are like assholes, and everybody's got one. They all stink.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, really, that and standing firm in our faith that, you know what, now is our time to step into our family. Jesse and I can guide our family and raise our family in any way that we see fit, and continuing to educate ourselves and be kind in the process and just understand. Also know that there's a blend of, I mean, we're stepping back into the more natural and way of raising a child and of having a child that was years ago, before a lot of the medical practices of today have stepped in. But there's good on both sides and there's bad on both sides, and so understanding that, especially with our situation, sometimes the medical side that we wouldn't necessarily take is it can be a blessing, and it can be a good thing, especially when it comes to, like, if there are complications, if there were to be any sort of complications, there's so much more help now than if it were to be 100 years ago.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so as natural as we can is how we're going to be, but also like having faith and that understanding that that there is so much more medical help out there,
right,
if it were needed, which is awesome.
Exactly. You're really tiptoeing the line, and you just have to decipher and really play both sides of the game, really.
Yeah.
So it's a interesting situation to be in right now. There's a lot of opinions, as you stated, and there's a lot of unsolicited advice that's being projected onto people and how to raise children or what to do and what not to do, and I really feel like that we are part of the first generation, specifically in our family, that we are going to be doing things that they didn't do for us. And not that it makes what they did right or wrong. It's just that all that you know is what you know.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like our generation and maybe give or take a handful of years is like there was the old school And then there was the introduction of this new school and globalization and industrialization, and all of these products and all of these methods were brought to the forefront and were thought to be this fantastic new wave of everything.
Yeah, the end all be all, revolutionary.
Yeah, and now there's enough data
Right.
to where like some of these products, like
Right.
they're not what they were marketed to us as, and we have decades now of data to where things are starting to happen physically with people. Things, I mean, you can go down the list.
Absolutely.
There's, without getting long-winded, you can go down the list of all of these practices, of all these products, and so now I feel like there's a shift happening mentally and even in all of these industries to where things are starting to revert back, but not losing that forward progression in certain ways.
Absolutely. And with new, you just have to have. I just feel like you have to be able to decipher and filter out the information and really do your own research. And with that, then you make educated decisions based off of your own findings and trusting your own gut, your instincts and your gut. But ultimately, for me, it's really getting back to, at our truest rooted form, what do I feel is best? And then taking in consideration the new age advancements that are happening, things that I can take because we've evolved, and saying, okay, well, how can I play the game? How can I play the game on both sides to best utilize the tools and assets and availability of this information, as well as the availability of the modalities and or resources and or services that are provided on both sides.
Yeah.
And so then that allows you to, because then if you're just closed-minded, I feel that if you're closed-minded to completely shut off to one side or the other, I do feel that you're limiting yourself to a lot of information. You're limiting yourself to a lot of service and a lot of value.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a blanket statement across the board.
And so, I mean, it's a very interesting position to be in right now. It's 2022. We're moving into 2023. We are
stepping into the final quarter of the year.
Yeah, the final
2 weeks.
Final quarter of the year, and heading into it. So, we're just gonna wrap this up here in the next couple minutes. I know we didn't get into a lot of things, but definitely would have to have you on the podcast again and have Jesse on here as well at some point. Where can everybody find you specifically, and then the shop?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook, Bryce Thompson. Where I have my personal page and my real estate page, which will be Bryce Thompson eXp Realty. You can find me on Instagram at bryce.kr.thompson. And then the shop, Sunshine Sparklefaced, is on Facebook, a Sunshine Sparklefaced, Instagram, Sunshine_Sparklefaced, and then website coming up really soon.
Outstanding. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all the success within that. So be sure to check them out on all platforms. And if you received insight, value, and inspiration from today's More in the Know podcast episode, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and just let people know that this podcast is something that's going to be available for the upcoming months, upcoming years, and I'd love to hear your story. So if you're somebody in the Phoenix Valley, I'm only doing in-person podcasting right now, but if you feel that you have something valuable and insight to offer to this podcast, as well as all the listeners here, please send me your submission. You can find me at More in the Know on all platforms, and you can see all of the different platform links, social media links down below. Be sure to check out Sammy Listo. Thank you once again, Sammy, for your contribution and just you being a beautiful spirit. Farmsushi.com for all your primal meats and organs. Fieldsupplements.com for the best and highest quality clinically dosed supplements on the entire market. Saunacles.com for cold plunges, breath work. Surrender.com for anything that makes you soar, transform, and be your best self. And we have so many different beautiful things going on. And I just want to say thank you once again, Bryce, for being my special guest today. And I look forward to the future, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.